I've been able to stay within the organic realm without compromising my technique or my style, which has been nice.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the Autoflower Podcast. I'm Chad, and man, I am so encouraged by the messages that I have been receiving through Facebook and Instagram. Even got one from Ireland. How cool is that? Mr. Murphy. Man, thank you so much for your encouragement. He's also got a question. I thought I'd throw it out there for the audience and for everyone to kind of chime in on. Wants to know, in a grow space, is it better to grow less plants in bigger pots or more plants in smaller pots to get the largest yield? What do you guys think? I personally think that if he goes with the bigger pots and less plants, probably going to end up with more flower at the end. But that's just my personal opinion. So let me know what you guys think, and if you've got a question as well, go ahead and send it this way, and maybe we can get it answered. Our guest this week is an organic autoflower grower named Merlin. He's been growing for a little while. He's got some really nice training. If you want to check out his Instagram account, it's at Mountain Merlin, and the link is in the show notes. We really had a lengthy conversation. Actually, it was about 2.5 hours long. And I really had to edit out a lot to get this episode down to around an hour. So there's about 1.5 hours of content that you're not going to hear. Some of it was pretty good, and some of it we were just kind of shooting the breeze back and forth, and it's really not that interesting. But hopefully you will get something out of this. Merlin's going to take us through his organic grow from seed to harvest and kind of give us an idea of what he does and how he grows and time frames and things like that. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it, and I know I did. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Merlin.
So take us through like one of your grows from start to finish, if you wouldn't mind, and kind of explain to us like the.
Yeah, totally. So I would say the first thing to consider is genetics, obviously. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that the seeds that you're getting are of high quality. You basically get what you pay for. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can go get some cheap autoflower seeds and they'll probably do just fine, but it does make a huge difference, and I can attest to that. You know what I mean? Like, I've grown seeds that were basic autoflower seeds, and then I've grown stuff that are from reputable companies, and they tend to turn out a lot better, and I don't do that much different for them to turn out that much better. Does that make sense? Or does that?
Yes, it does. I've had a similar experience.
As messed up as it was to say that just some companies do more when it comes to testing their seeds and making sure that the crosses that they do are feasible and actually work before they start pushing them out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Yeah, there's no shortage of seed companies, I guess, if you want to call it that, on the internet and Instagram and Facebook, and it just seems like there's quite a bit of just people like me who are just breeding autos and selling seeds. And if that's your thing, then that's okay. I mean, I'm not going to step on your toes and say you shouldn't do that, but for me, I've had a similar experience to you where I didn't really start out with the greatest genetics, so I totally agree. I agree 100%. Yeah.
And I'm not saying Crop King seeds is bad in any sense, but
no,
I mean,
no, not at all.
Crop King seeds compared to Mephisto, in my opinion, Mephisto puts out stuff that is just, it's so consistent that I can't argue with it. I'm telling you right now, it makes a world of difference.
So you start,
like I said,
starting. So number one, you're gonna want to obviously start with good, decent genetics, because that's going to help you in your grow.
Obviously, yeah. But that's where you want to start, is good genetics, and make sure that you're picking something that is equivalent for your grow space. Average size of the plant, how it does indoors, if it's good against heat or cold, depending on where you're living or where your grow space is at. Like if you're in a cold basement, you don't want something that's like more built for like heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Afghan strains are more like heat resistant, and you try to put them in cold and they'll shrivel up and die real quick as compared to like a Northern Lights
Gotcha.
being in cold. You know what I'm saying? And so you just want to pick something that's good for your environment if you're just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just going to be a little bit of a different challenge for you, controlling your environment.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, basically also the size, because like I only grow in my tent is a 2 by 2 by 4 in height.
That's what I grow in.
Yeah. So it's basically like a closet-sized tent.
Mm-hmm.
And that haze, like I said, that Phantasmo Express crossed with that sour, I call it Ghost Stomper.
Mm-hmm.
That strain is getting big on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for my tent. And so like it's going to be a challenge, but I kind of wanted that. I wanted a challenge. I haven't grown a sativa indoors yet.
Yeah.
But even autos, with as fast as they are, man, there's a process. You know what I mean? You have to be really patient. You have to really observe your plant, and you have to be able to identify things quickly, especially with an autoflower, and remedy them quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you don't have a lot of recovery time. You can't just keep it in veg for longer so it can bounce back like you can with a photo. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's one of those things where a lot of people think autos are easier, and yes, they're easy, but it's like the saying goes, it's easy to grow weed. It's not easy to grow good weed.
That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to have to start using that.
Because it is. I've never heard anything more true. You can plant a seed and have weed in 2 months if you barely do anything, but it's not going to be anything worthwhile. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, though, because I hear so many times, like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that, you know? And it's like, on sorry to interrupt you, but on Facebook, it's like, you know, I was part of these groups where these new growers would, like, you know, find a seed, or someone gave them a seed, and they don't have any light, and it's like cold outside, and they like throw it in the windowsill, and people are just bashing them, dude. Just like, oh, dude, what are you doing? You know, you noob, you can't do that. We don't grow in windowsills, and you know, like I get it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
What do you mean? Like, I mean, I just saw Nebula Hayes from Grow Eat Easy on Instagram actually grow one and harvest it just to do it. You know, it's like an extra plant, I think, that she was going to get rid of. And she was like, hell, I'm going to throw this thing in the windowsill. It's like, yeah, you can grow it in a windowsill. You can grow it outdoors. You can grow an autoflower in 10 hours of light if you want during the winter.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, so I guess it's a pet peeve of mine when people are like, no, you can't do that. Oh, that, you know, you can't do that. It's like, well, yeah, you can. You're just not going to have these gigantic, swollen, huge High Times magazine looking flowers. That's all. You can still grow it.
That's a horrible outlook to have in the cannabis industry as a whole. You can't is just, you need to keep those people as far away from you as humanly possible, man. Because I had a couple people that were like that on Instagram because I tell you right now, I have not grown one single auto without topping it.
Is that right?
That's right. I have not grown a single autoflower without topping it. Not one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
see,
so
that's the thing.
Dude, 2 years ago when I started and I was topping my autoflowers, every single person that was growing autoflowers, you can't top autos. You can't top autos. And I'm sitting here showing them, I fucking topped this. And that's what I did. I've topped because then people would say, oh, well, that one did well, but that was just a fluke. You know what I mean? Like, that was because that strain did well with it. Every single strain I've done to this point has been topped.
You know, that's like with some of my autos, like I tried out kind of like a little micro growth. I just like to do different things, man. Maybe it's because I just enjoy variety. I don't know, but it's like,
it's science, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you're not really supposed to top autos, and then I hear like, well, you can nowadays if you have the right genetics, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna try it. So like these 2 strains that I'm getting ready to harvest, I topped those things 3 times. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, well, I mean, twice. I don't know if you want to call it 2 or 3. I topped it, and then it made 2 main colas, and I topped both of those 2 main colas. So I topped 3 different branches, but I mean, I guess I only did it twice, But
2 toppings, but still.
Yeah, but and not. I'm just trying stuff out, trying to mainline different ways, seeing the different, because if you top right away versus topping later, then the hormones release differently, and I'm just trying different stuff, man. 1 gallon pots, 5 gallon pots. I'm just experimenting,
And that's great. That's what we need. You know what I mean? And that's like when you were saying people telling people that they can't do it. Why would you tell someone that they can't do that? Why wouldn't you just let them do it and see how it turns out?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of ego flying around where people are.
That's what science. You know what I mean? What we're doing is a form of science, and that's what science is about. It's like expanding. And experimentation. Yeah. And so, like, the more people that you have experimenting with different types of experiments, you're going to have so many different results. That think of how much information that is for us.
Right. Yeah.
Pro information in your industry. It's like I said, it's a completely ignorant mindset to have to tell people you can't at all in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can just find a way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if someone messages me and says, hey, I goofed up, I need to transplant this auto, it's 20 days old, or, and I really need to transplant it, it's getting root bound or this and that. I mean, what you're gonna tell them, no, you can't, throw it in the trash?
Yeah.
You need to just cut it down and burn it? I mean, no, transplant it, and you're probably going to minimize or cut back some of your yields. I mean, sure, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to grow it. That's the thing, So now if somebody asks me, I could just kind of speak more from experience and say, yeah, I've done that, and here's what happened, So
exactly. And if you hadn't done that, and if you had listened when somebody told you can't do that, then you wouldn't have been able to provide that person with that experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, because the reason I even wanted to transplant the one that I just did, is because they are regulars, and I spent some money on some like super soil, like by Nature's Living Soil. It's not super soil, I guess. It's like concentrated compost, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to sprout a bunch of plants and have them use up 2 weeks, 3 weeks of all that nutrients just to be male, So that's why I put them in solo cups, and then I transplanted a female, and it's also just to test it out, So
yeah, I mean that makes sense though, and if that's what you wanted to do, boom.
Yeah, and now I'm trying out something totally different where I've got like a 5-gallon bag instead of a 1-gallon pot, and I'm planted a couple in there, and whichever one's male, I'll just pull it out and leave the female. So I'm just trying different things, Yeah. What would be a good beginner strain if you have anything? If you have anything in mind?
A lot of Gorilla Glue strains tend to be really low, chunky plants.
Okay.
So, like, I would suggest if you could get, like, a Gorilla Glue version of an Autoflower and you like those strains, like, Gorilla Glue is probably one of my favorite strains just because the resin production is always really, fantastic on those plants. And so it's what they're known for. It's where the name comes from. And so it's a good high, and it doesn't take a lot to have a good yield, if that makes, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Because they're already, like, known to be very chunky and resinous. So even if you mess up here or there, you're still going to have a good harvest and a good yield from from a Gorilla Glue strain, and it's not going to get too tall on it. It's just going to stay nice. nice and low to medium, but big chunky buds because that, the Gorilla Glue genetics.
Yeah, gotcha.
And for germination, the way that I do it, I've tried a bunch of different ways. I've tried using the pea pods. I tried going straight to soil. I've tried variations of everything. I've tried going like soaking in a shot glass of water and then into the pod. I've gone just straight into the pod. You know what I mean? Like I tried a variation, and then the way that I kind of dialed it in for me personally, and what I found works most consistently is I will take the seed that I want to germinate, and I will get a shot glass, and I'll fill it with tap water. I won't let the tap water sit. Nothing spectacular. You don't need a pH or anything. Like most tap water has chlorine in it. And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I don't want the chlorine." It's not it's almost a good thing because it'll get rid of any bacteria that's on the seed or on your hands from hand. People put gloves on. You know what I mean? Like if you're growing this to sell it to somebody, then don't listen to anything I'm saying, because I grow this stuff for myself. I'm serious, because I don't know how to, like, I do know how to be sanitary to a point where to me it's clean, but not to the point where it would be like state certified, levels of me wearing a suit and keeping my hair in a hairnet and my beard, like I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I got you.
It's for me, and I don't mind my skin and my oils being on my plant. So, but you take that seed and I put it in a shot glass of just tap water, and then I keep that shot glass somewhere dark, but relatively warm. A closet works, but you also want like a little bit of airflow. You know what I mean? You don't want like air rushing past it, but you don't want it in the stagnant area, for the most part. And I'll give it 24 hours in that shot glass. And in that 24 hours, I check on it every like 2 to 6 hours, because at some point I'm going to go to sleep. So there's going to be like a 6-hour gap where I'm not going to be checking on it. But in that time, you want to check on it. And when you first drop it in the shot glass, you want to give it a little tap when it's in the water. And most of the time the seed will float. Sometimes the seed will instantly sink, and that's not a bad thing. I've had that happen, and that plant has, been just fine, germinated and gone all the way to harvest with no problems. A lot of people say if it sinks right away, it's a bad seed, and that's not the case, and I can attest to that.
Oh, yeah, I've had some sink right away, because I do a similar method, and I haven't had a problem, myself. I haven't personally, anyway. Yeah,
see, some people will say that if it sinks right away, it's a bad seed. And now you and I can both attest to the fact that that's definitely not true.
Yeah, I'd never even heard that either. So I'm surprised I haven't, but I've never even heard that.
Yeah, I've heard it a couple times, and I'm just not the guy to make waves, so I'm never the guy to comment like, no.
Right.
No, it's not all, but I'm sitting there like, no, that's not necessarily true, man.
Yeah. It's like, teach your own.
But you want to, if it doesn't sink, you want to give it a little tap, and if it doesn't sink, that's fine. That's basically what you're waiting in that 24 hours for, is checking on it, tapping it. But when you don't want to take it out until it does sink.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so, but once it has sunk and you've given it a full 24 hours, you take that shot glass and you get what I use, and this has always worked the best for me. People use plates, but I use like Tupperware. Because it tends to hold moisture a little better, I feel like.
Okay.
And on top of that, I use like a seedling mat.
What's a seedling mat? You mean like a heater? Or?
Yeah, it's like a little heating mat, but it doesn't get like super hot. It just warms up the ambient temperature by like 12 to 15 degrees.
Okay.
And so like it's just like a super low heat mat, but that heat helps germination. So I'll put that mat underneath the Tupperware container, and I'll put a paper towel in the Tupperware, and I pour the shot glass out onto the paper towel, with the seed in there, and then I'll cover up, fold the towel over and on itself, and then put a little bit more water on the top of that paper towel so that it's like nice and wet, but not like sopping wet.
Yeah.
Like the way that I test that is I'll just tip the Tupperware container and drain anything that's excess out of it.
Okay.
And then I'll set it down on that mat with it nice and wet like that. and you just leave it in a dark place with that. I use the heating mat because it's warm, but if you don't have a heating mat, you want it somewhere dark and warm, like the warmest place in your house that's dark, you know what I mean? And then leave it there for about 2 to 3 days, just checking on the paper towel. Normally it's 2 days is, you know, how fast you'll notice, but like you just want to keep it warm and make sure that you keep checking on that paper towel, and do not let that paper towel dry out, because if that paper towel dries out, more than likely you're going to lose that seed.
Okay. So keep it moist.
So you want to make sure, and like I've had that happen before, and it's a bummer. Like I fell asleep for far too long and woke up and my paper towel was just bone dry and that seed was toast. You know what I mean? And so I was like, man, I tried bringing it back and it didn't work. So I can attest that like it really is toast if you let that paper towel dry out, especially that early. It's very sensitive in the early stages, those seeds are.
Yeah.
And so you got to make sure that you keep it nice and warm, nice and moist and dark. And you'll notice if you're doing things right, you can take a peek when you go to re-moisten it. Just take a peek at your seed. It should be cracking. It should, like, sometimes it will crack in the shot glass, which is nice. It doesn't always. But when you're doing this with a paper towel and you're checking on it, it should be cracked within the first day at least. Like, you know, the seed should be cracking open. And then the next day you should start to really see like a white taproot coming out of that seed.
Okay.
And then once you get like a good, I'd say like a good centimeter, maybe 2 centimeters of like a good white taproot, that's when you want to put it into your medium. So if you're somebody who uses peat pods, that's when I would put it in a peat pod. If you're somebody that goes straight into soil, that's when you would put your seed into the soil. And when I go to put my seed into soil, I make sure that I'm putting it into the bag that I plan on finishing the plant in.
Right. Okay.
So
how deep do you put it in there? How deep do you put the seed into the soil?
I go like, if I'm going in the soil, I go literally like, I'll take my index finger and I'll poke a hole like down to my first knuckle, maybe like halfway up towards my actual knuckle. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So on my finger, there's like, you know, if you're pointing down, you've got that first line.
Yeah.
So I go to like that point. Yep, I go to like that point or like halfway to the next joint. Okay.
It's like an inch or so, maybe a little more.
Yeah. Maybe an inch to an inch, like an inch. I would say half an inch to an inch is what I would say.
Okay. I guess it depends on how big your fingers are, huh?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I just use my finger because I don't have big hands. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that's about a half an inch to an inch at most.
Okay.
So I fill my pots with the soil. You know what I mean? While I'm germinating my seeds, I get my bags ready. I use 5 gallons because I've used different sized bags, and the size of the bag determines the size of the plant most of the time.
Oh yeah.
Like especially with autos, what I've noticed. And so like I've grown in 3 gallons and it was way too small. That was what I did my main line on. So if you're like, man, that's a small plant, be like, understand it's in a 3 gallon and I stunted it a lot by mainlining it. That's why it's so short and chunky. But
yeah. Dude, I've got 2 plants in a 1 gallon fabric pot. Those ones that I topped a couple of times and kind of, not a true main line, but the ones that I opened up and kind of mainlined out.
Right. I saw that, yeah.
So they're tiny. Good. They're super tiny. Super, super tiny. Good little micro grow technique. That's for sure.
No, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically what I was doing because like I said, my first grow was in an 8 gallon bucket.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
And so yeah, it got big, man. Like I said, you'll see my candy canes from Crop Kings on my Instagram profile. I mean it got big to the point where I had to support it with bamboo sticks.
Did you really?
Yeah, like my buds were like toppling over. They were so chunky and it was just tall, so they were just falling over. You know what I mean? I was like, man.
Yeah. How many do you grow? Real quick question. How many do you grow at a time in a 2x2 tent with 5 gallon grow bags? How many do you got going at one time?
Only 2.
Okay, that's what I was considering doing. That's funny that I was going to switch to 5 just to try, and like a test, like switch to 5 gallons, 2 of them, and grow 2 5 gallons at one time rather than like 5 1-gallons.
Right.
Because I need more.
See,
I need to but I need to stop like the testing and get up on some yield because I'm running out and I'm I'm goofing up a little bit.
That's basically that's exactly why I did what I did. That's funny. Not only did we have the same idea, but we had the same reasoning.
Is that right?
Yeah. I used to just grow one.
Mm-hmm.
I did 2 grows. Like my first 2 grows, I only did 1 plant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, there's a lot of space in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was still dialing in size. That's why I was only doing 1 plant, because I did that 8-gallon,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, holy shit, that's a little bit too big. And then I did that 3-gallon, and it was so small, and I had so much space. I was like, okay.
Okay.
So if I did a 5-gallon, then I could I can't even say that word.
Ideally?
Realistically, realistically, I could fit 2 5-gallons in here and be just fine, especially if I'm topping and training.
Right.
And so that's what I do now. I grow in 5-gallon fabric bags, and there's 2 of them in that little tent, and they each have their own 3,500 K creek cobs from. I use my lights are from the cob shop.
Okay. Very cool, man.
Yeah. So when I am, I've got my seeds and they've got their tails and I'm going to plant them, I get my bags ready. And recently I've moved to organic. And so the soil that I'm using now is actually the same soil from my previous grow.
You're reusing it?
Yeah, I recycled it using bokashi, and I amended it. And so far, both of those plants have received nothing but just water.
So what's bokashi? What is that?
It's like a probiotic. It's like living soil. It's like organic compost.
Okay.
And they send it to you in the form of it's on oats. So it's all organic and it's bound to these oats, and you just basically mix it in with your soil in layers.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can buy it from companies. All you have to do is just look up bokashi, and there'll be a bunch of companies. The company that I've worked with that's really like reasonably priced from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And like same thing like as Mephisto, every time I hit them up, they respond within like hours, dude, not just a day. They're real quick. They're phenomenal. Homegrown bokashi on Instagram. That's their thing is they're phenomenal. Like I have a couple other friends, fellow growers like Third Floor Organics, Mystery Inc., Shaggy, that have also from Seed to Press, if you follow him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, all those guys, yeah. Uh-huh.
All those guys are all now homegrown bokashi users.
Oh, okay.
And like I don't know if you saw Third Floor Organics Gorilla Gasm, the one with all those colors.
I don't think so. No.
Dude, it's insane. He's got this Gorilla Gasm from top shelf elite genetics, and he's using the bokashi, and dude, the colors on it, it's like it looks fake until
Does it really?
Until you see he posted a picture. You can tell it's unfiltered and unedited because there's a plant right next to it that looks green and just normal as all day, and then that plant is just purple and yellow and pink and red, and you're like, damn.
Oh wow.
He's using that homegrown bokashi with that one.
Oh, okay.
And so it's all organic, and it makes it super easy. Like it's almost too easy. I love it. It's all you do is just water. I've given this thing no bottled newts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that Cold War Organics, that bud bread's the only thing I've given it, and that's organic too.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so, yeah, and same thing with the soil grow, the turp tonic. That's totally organic. So I've been able to stay within the organic realm without compromising my technique or my style, which has been nice.
Yeah. Yeah. That Terptonics, have you run that? Is this your first time using it?
This is my first time using it, yeah.
Oh, you're going to love it, dude. I've harvested.
Really?
Yeah, I harvested my last plant. I flushed with it, and then I'm flushing a couple of more plants with it, and it really does seem to for me, I'm waiting on these other couple of plants, but to really like kind of, give it a review, but man, it really seemed to make a difference in the last plant I used it with. It's really good stuff. You'll like it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear.
So you put it in the soil. You put it in your soil. Do you when you put your seed into your soil, do you soak the entire pot?
Like the whole pot of soil?
Yeah. Do you pre-soak the whole pot, or that's something I'm confused on? People say like a pre-charge and pre-soak, and
I do that initially.
Okay.
Just because, I feel like it kind of like prepares your soil and it gives the moisture that it initially needs. Because if you just, put it in there and water just around where the seed is, like that dries up pretty quick.
Yeah, because that's what I do, and I'm watering like sometimes 2 times a day on seedlings.
Yeah, see, and I do that too, because after that first initial soak, it will dry up in about a day or two. You know what I'm saying? And so then from then on out, I do water 2 times a day typically, and I keep it within like probably like an 8-inch circle of the sproutling.
Okay.
I don't go any farther than like that. I keep it pretty localized because I want it to go all the way down to the bottom of the pot.
You do
and
want
the reason
to.
for that,
okay.
Yeah, I do, because I want that taproot to be reaching down as fast as possible.
Oh, okay. See, I need to do that. I need to do that.
Once it hits the bottom of that pot and realizes this is where I stop, that's when it'll start really going.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's why I keep it within like the water after the first couple of days. Like I said, I soak it completely when I get ready to put the seed in there, so it has that good amount of moisture for those couple of days. And then what I do, I put the the clear cup over the site,
right,
where the seedling is, and I inside of that cup so that it keeps even more humidity and moisture in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll only keep that cup on and maybe a day after that seed pops out.
Okay.
Like a day to 3 days at most, I'll keep that cup over the sproutling that pops out. As soon as it pops out, that cup only stays on for like a day to 3 days.
Okay.
But like I said, I'll always water just around like where maybe a 1/2 inch to an inch outside of where that cup's sitting.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that it goes all the way down to the bottom of the pot.
Okay. All right. So when you soak like a 5-gallon fabric pot of soil, it does dry out without the plant sucking up all the water, huh? It'll dry out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll dry out on its own because most of your runoff will go out the bottom. You know what I mean? Like it'll soak the whole thing through.
Right.
And your excess will come out the bottom. And then within like that day or two, that soil, if you have good ventilation, you know what I mean? So you got air moving around and stuff, like it should dry out in a day or two.
Okay.
Completely. And then from there, I wait until about day probably like 15 is when I'll start. 12 to 15 is when I'll start like training. I typically tend to train and trim a lot more than most growers do.
Do you?
Yeah. And you can go through my profile and see it. And I'm fine with that because like I said, everybody has their own styles, and I know personally that I do train and trim a lot, but I really like to see my nodes getting a lot of light. And so I'll be like, if there's and I know, so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you know that the leaf that's underneath each node is the leaf that's feeding that node, right?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of people don't know that leaf that's gathering light, you know what I mean, and creating photosynthesis and making energy, that leaf that is underneath each node stem is its source of food and growth and energy pretty much. So as soon as you take that leaf off, those fan leaves, that node growth is going to slow down a lot.
Oh, I did not know that. I didn't put that together. Okay.
Yes. That's why that's a form of training. You know what I mean? Like if you want to slow a node down, cut that fan leaf, the supporting underneath fan leaf, because that's its source of food.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's like I just didn't really think of that.
It's its source of like immediate food. You know what I mean? Real quick. And so, like, once you take that away, now it's having to pull from the main stock and compete with everything else. And so what I like to do with my training is I like to create, like, 2 different levels of canopies. And so, like, I like there to be, like, an upper canopy. So that includes, like, 4 branches, you know what I mean, that are all pulled out evenly so that you have, like, a nice even top. I like to call it my box top because there's 4 typically. And if you do it perfectly, it's a box. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all the lower nodes are on, like, this outer, kind of like on the outside, almost like a wedding cake. Like it's tiered. You know what I mean? You got that upper level, and then the outer bottom branches are all
kind of wider and
pulled out, but they're all level with each other. And the reason you want it level is because if you don't have them level, then the one that's high, any higher branches than the other one are going to grow faster because now they're of more importance because they're closer to the light source.
Okay. And typically what node are you topping at?
After the 4th, yeah.
Okay.
And like like I said, I'll let it go. Like that 5th, I'll let it see how it's going. You know what I mean? But I'll always typically take it off.
So you top it, you start training it, you let it grow, you get it to where kind of the shape and the training and the canopy that you want, and then you just kind of let it do its thing, or?
I do. I let it do its thing from there, other than, making sure that it's getting fed what it needs to, because you have to observe your plant and you'll notice things. Mistake it for one thing, tried to fix it, and I was like, holy moly.
So when you're growing an organic, when it comes time for you to harvest, do you still flush?
Yes.
And do you still get a fade and everything, or?
I sure hope so. Like I said, from Third Floor Organic, from what I can see, his fade is hard. His fade is like, he's got, like I said, yellows, orange, pinks, reds, purples.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think, if anything, I think that it's going to create more of a fade because it's more natural.
Okay, so the plant naturally fades, right? Like in nature?
Yes, naturally the
fall
plant should be fading.
Yeah.
I've always done the ice method because I knew that worked. Because there was actual, reasoning behind it. It's mimicking the cold in fall, and like when that ice melts, that water is so cold that when it's hitting those roots, that plant's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like this is not the normal kind of water we get. This is ice cold.
Right. When do you do that?
I start doing that as soon as I flush.
Okay. So you just keep your plant in your tent with ice in it?
Yeah, that's what I do. I do it about a week. So like I flush for 2 weeks, but I do the ice for like the last week.
Okay, so you put ice in there, you just let it melt, and when it goes away, do you just add more?
Yep.
Okay, and then you got like a catch tray or something, obviously, right, to get all the water?
Yeah, but most of the time, even when I pile that ice on top of the soil, like it never makes it all the way through.
Because it's slow, huh?
Yeah, it's slow.
I might have to do that.
That's nice. And you keep it around the stalk real well. And just keep the whole surface of that soil covered with that ice, and it makes sure that it, like I said, it makes the soil cold.
Right.
And you're basically like insulating the soil with ice from the top, so it's like snow. You know what I mean? It's like snow's falling on the ground and shit's melting and draining into the soil, and that plant's going, oh shit, we made it all the way to winter.
So is it safe to say then, like if a plant isn't fading, is it safe to say that it's not time to chop, or does it not always work like that?
It doesn't always work like that.
Okay.
Some plants don't fade the way that other plants do. You know what I mean? They're all not the same.
Okay.
And like I've had, let's see, I think 4 or 5 autoflowers that I've grown. I know it's not a lot, but that's about 2 years worth.
Sure. Yeah.
I've only had 2 plants that faded out of the 5.
Oh, okay.
5 that I've done.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other ones were green. And I thought the same thing. Now I thought the same exact thing. So don't think that was like a dumb thing to ask, because I wondered the same thing. So I'm like, what the hell? Like,
oh yeah,
am I the only one not getting a fade? Like I've been flushing this plant correctly. How am I not? You know, am I not doing this right? Is it not ready for chop? Because it looks ready to me. The trichomes,
I don't think there is a dumb question, man, and I'm not afraid to ask them, that's for sure. So how do you determine, like, your harvest window? What do you prefer as far as, do you just go off your trichome development? Or
I do. Yes,
yeah.
I do. I go off my trichome development. I mean, I know that's hard for some people, but, like, that's the easiest way to do it. I can't
Totally. Yeah, I
tell
agree.
you a time because every plant, like, regardless of what's estimated for the run time, like, it's never that.
Yeah.
And even if it's earlier, you know, it's never like right on what they say. So you can't go by that. You gotta do a lot of things by just playing it by how the plant gives it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because my Colorado cookies ran for like 112 days.
Mhm.
It was ridiculous, and like part of it was because I stressed it so hard. But I mean, I was like, I'm so done with this plant. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm over it at this point. It's supposed to be an autoflower. Like, what the hell? And finally, like, just checking my trichomes, making sure I've got, like, all cloudy.
Yeah.
Because I like to do mine a little bit earlier. I don't like as much of a couch lock.
Same here.
And I like that sedative chill, but not, like, a heavy indica. So, like, for me, my prime window is, like, 80 to 90% cloudy trichomes with, like, 10. I think the other thing that really determines when I look to harvest is, again, by watching the plant, because you can see the different stages. Like, I'd say, in week 3 to 5, the plant is in, like, the most extreme form of growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is when that thing really goes hard and is stretching, and you'll see it grow fast. It's,
right.
You know, week 3 to 5 for an autoflower, like, it's just really going.
Mm-hmm.
And then after week 5, you'll see it change to like where it starts putting the chunk on. You know what I mean? It starts to see those buds starting to get like chunkier and chunkier. And then you'll see a point where it stops chunking out. It kind of like reaches its peak. You know what I mean? It stops swelling. You'll see like, okay, they've been this big pretty much for like 3 days now, 4 days. They're not really swelling anymore. I think that's the point when you should really start looking at your trichomes, and that's when you should start, you know the time frame of when you should be flushing anyways, but as far as harvesting, that's what you should be looking for. You know what I mean? Okay, so I've been flushing for a week, and these things look like they're starting to fade now. They stop swelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I should start really doing my ice treatment, flushing, doing stuff like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a collective evaluation on your trichomes and your leaves and your flower structure and everything, huh?
100%, yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of a combination
Pistils
of things.
will turn brown and start to kind of retract into the flowers.
That's right, yeah. You don't want, if you've got a bunch of white pistils still, then your plant's still got a ways to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes I've had it happen where I still, like, doesn't mean that you can't have any white hairs, because I've had autos that were definitely ready for harvest, but there was still some white hairs here and there.
Yeah, me too. I've run across that quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, and that happens, especially with autos, and I think it's because they just want to keep going.
Yeah, it almost seems like they turn brown, they start to retract, and then all of a sudden, sometimes like at the last minute, you see these white pistils start to spit out.
Yeah.
It's probably last-ditch effort, huh?
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking it is too, yeah, because I've had that, and I thought it was foxtailing at first. Thought I was getting manners, and I'm like, whoa. And then I looked, and nope, it's just white pistils trying to come out at the end of right before, and that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
So, like, again, that's why it's a combination of things. That's why it's a combination of watching the swell on your buds, as well as, checking the structure and also the trichomes, and then, your pistils as well. If you've had, like, the first set that came out and was, like, your main set of whites that are now brown and are retracted, and you're just getting new little whites, that's normal, man. You know what I mean? But that means that you should start wrapping it up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Getting close, huh? So when you when you chop, do you try to like let the soil dry out at all, or do you just kind of chop it when you're ready to chop it?
I do let the soil dry out. So like I basically do my ice treatments until the day before, if not 2 days before, just so it gives time for the soil to dry out. And I think that's right when I stop doing this next harvest, when I stop doing my ice treatment, is I think the day I'm going to drill it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like the 2 days before my chop, which is when I stop doing my ice, is the day I'll probably just drill that hole. So it's like the 2 days before the chop.
Mhm. And then do
And
you
that
put
way
it in the dark as well, or do you just?
I sure do.
Okay. How long do you do that for?
I put it in the dark for 4 days.
Oh wow. Okay. And what does that do?
It basically does the same thing that the ice and the
In the splitting?
right now. Yeah, same
Yeah.
thing that the ice and the splitting is doing. It's basically, so since most of my plants are on 24 hours, that darkness is kind of an indication to the plant that when it has longer nights, basically like the same thing when photos go to the 12-12, when it has a long night, it thinks that it's getting towards the end of its life.
Okay.
So if you give it that long darkness, it gives the plant a chance to, what it's basically doing is preparing for the next light.
Mhm.
And so it's pushing out resin to protect itself
Okay. That makes sense.
in the darkness.
Yeah. So potentially at the end of your grow, I mean, even if you're happy with what you got, you can ice that puppy, split the stalk, and stick it in the dark, and accordingly on schedule, and then you can really kind of enhance the quality of your flower. That's the point, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Very cool. And then how do you dry? You just hang them up?
I cut the whole plant at the main stalk, and then I just flip that puppy upside down and hang it inside my tent in the darkness.
Mhm.
I turn off all the fans except for the vent fan. I turn it on low, so it's
Mhm.
just a very minimal amount of like airflow, so it's not stagnant, but it's not like getting blown around in there.
Right. Yeah.
Because I like to extend my drying period for as long as I can, because the longer you extend it, the better your terpene profile is going to be, from what I've experienced.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I feel like when you try to rush it or you do like a warm 5 or 6 day dry, it's kind of more of like a hay smell.
Mhm.
You get a lot more of that photo, you know what I mean? That
chlorophyll.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That chlorophyll smell.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just
And so like I
you-
like to keep it cool.
Uh-huh.
And I like to keep it pretty humid, like relative humidity of like 50%, and then I like to keep it between like 65 and 70 degrees.
Okay.
And that way it keeps it cold, but it also like ensures that it's drying slowly.
Right.
But I keep it, like, to be honest, I would like it to be at 50, but I typically keep it at 40 because I get worried about bud rot.
Yeah. Yeah, that would suck.
So I keep mine at 40 just to play it safe, and I just keep it cold, and that way my drying process takes about 11 to 14 days typically.
Okay, that's perfect though. And then do you cure too, or?
Oh yes, that's my favorite part.
Is it?
Probably my favorite part of growing is curing. Yeah, because I don't know how anybody can sit there and tell you that curing doesn't do anything or.
Oh, it does.
But it's not worth it, because I'll tell you right now, like I've smoked my stuff straight after chopping it and drying it, and then I'm like, okay, and then I've cured it for a week and tried it, and that was significantly better. And then I tried 2 weeks of curing, and then I'm like, okay, that's even better. And then when I've had stuff that's been curing for like 2-3 months, man, that stuff.
Really, I've never even had that.
Oh, dude, it's honestly like wine. And from what I've read, wise, from what I hear, the plateau is 4 months. So like, you can cure, and it will affect the potency and the flavor of the smoke. It will increase for 4 months of curing. So
wow.
Yeah, the more you cure, the more, but it kind of plateaus. After 4 months, it's going to stay the same at like 8 months that it was going to be at 4.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because yes, it does. Yeah, because I harvested a plant about, well, I don't know how long ago it was, but at least a month and a half ago probably. I let it dry. I tried to long dry it. It probably took about 10 days. It's real. I'm in Southern California, so as you know, it's not very humid here. It's pretty dry.
Right.
And so But I had to start smoking it like right when I was done drying it because I just didn't have any. I was out. And but now that it's been probably 2.5 weeks because I do keep popping the jar and burp it and cure it. I got a Bovita pack in there with it. Man, it's like a different strain, literally, like a different strain. Yeah, it's like a completely different strain. The smell,
100%.
the effect, the
changes.
taste. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I've had
it's pretty,
strains, completely flop like smell and taste on me just from curing, and I can totally attest to that. Like,
yeah, I love it. Well, man, thanks so much for coming on and just donating your. I know time is precious to everybody, and I just appreciate you giving up your morning to come on and chat.
Of course,
yeah,
man.
Really appreciate it.
It's more than worth it.
Yeah, I
really appreciate you having me.
Right on, brother. Well, we'll have to chat again soon.
All right, man. Yeah, let me know.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around and listening to the episode with Merlin. That was some pretty good stuff, huh? I know I got a lot out of it, and I hope you guys did too. I hope you can maybe take some of that information and maybe adapt some of those techniques into your own grow. Hey, I'd like to hear from you and see what you think about the podcast and kind of give me your thoughts about how it's formatted and what you'd like to hear and what you'd like to not hear. I know I got a message saying that I should add more background music because my voice is creepy. Sorry about that. I'll try to add more background music. But thanks a lot for listening. Be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast and also follow on all the social media outlets. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.